Now that we have some dummy data in our database, let's go ahead and see how to retrieve this data in our controllers. Okay, so remember, we've learned the views, which are in our resources views directory right here, and we've learned the routes, which are going to receive the request from our clients, and we've learned the controllers, which are in our app http controllers directory. So here's the basic workflow. We have a view right here, and the user who is on that page is going to make a request, maybe to view a page, or maybe to store a to-do, or whatever request is making. Our router is gonna pick up that request, which is right here in our web.php. It will pick up that request, understand the request, and then it would direct to a particular controller. Okay, so for example, maybe the user created a new to-do and he wants to save it into the database. What he's gonna do, he's gonna send a post request. Our writer is gonna pick up that post request, send it to the adequate controller, which is our to-dos controller, and right here we're gonna use a particular method on our controller to save it into our database, and then we would return a response to our user. So first thing, let's take care of the read. So how do we read data from our database? First of all, the user needs to request to see the data. Okay, so we'll go ahead and create a page, and I'll call this todos.blade.php right there. Okay, so right here I'll just copy every information in my welcome page and I'll paste it right here, and I'm going to call this to-dos right there, and I'll remove all of this dummy data right here, and right here what I want is to display the to-dos that the user has in the database. Okay, so I have a view, so when the user requests a particular route, I will need to display this view with a list of all the to-dos. So let's go ahead to our router. We'll define a particular route that the user needs to visit to be able to see his to-dos. So right here I'll say when the user visits the to-dos route, take him to the to-dos controller and take him to the index method on that controller. Okay, so visit the to-dos route, use the to-dos controller and the index method. So it looks like in our to-dos controller we need to create the index method. Okay, so right there we're gonna create a public function and it will be index. Okay, so everything that we do right now right here is gonna be done as soon as the user visits the to-dos route. Okay, so let's head over to our controller and let's just return the view that we just created. Okay, so return the to-dos view. So todos.blade.php is going to be returned. Okay, so let's just see that work. Let's go over to our browser, and right here we're going to visit the to-dos route, and right there we have our to-dos. Okay, so it means we are able to connect our router right here to our controller and return the view. But now we don't want to just return this, we want to return this with our to-dos so that we'll be able to display them. Okay, so right here I'll just use the app/to-do class. So I'm using this class so I'll be able to use the to-do class. So our to-do, remember, .php interacts with our database, so we're gonna use that to-do to interact with our database. So I'll create a variable and I'll say to-dos, and this to-dos variable is gonna use the to-do class, and it will call a static method on that class called all, and that's exactly all we have to do. We don't need to make some crazy queries to our database, we just need to call that method right there. So we're calling all method, and this method is simply gonna get all the to-dos in our database. Now that we had all the to-dos in our database and we've stored it in our to-dos variable, let's go ahead and pass this data to our view. So we'll call a with method, and this with method is going to take, first of all, the name of the variable that we want to use to access this data in our view. So I'll call that to-dos, and the next is the data that we want to pass in. So I'll say to-dos right here. So this is the data we are passing in, and in our view, this is the variable that we are going to use to access the data. Okay, so we are returning the view with some data. So right now we have access to that data. Now let's head over back to our view. So we need to actually view this data that we passed in from our controller. How do we do that? Now, Laravel provides us a very simple Blade templating engine for us to be able to cleanly display data in our views. Okay, so normally in PHP we'll have to open and close PHP tags and for each right here, and we'll say to-dos, which is the variable that we passed right here, so to-dos right here. So if I call this maybe task, right here I'll need to write task. Okay, so I have this variable available because it's passed from my controller. Okay, so normally in PHP we'll just write to-dos as to-do right here, and we close our PHP tags, and we'll go ahead and open PHP tags again. So PHP, and then we'll say and for each. Okay, and so for each of them, and then we'll say echo the to-do. Okay, and since we have an object, we'll say echo to-do. Okay, and remember we are receiving this object from our database, and if we check out our migration, we have a to-do field from our database, so we can access that as an object. Okay, so we can echo that right there. So normally this is how we're gonna do it. So now if I go ahead to my to-dos page and I refresh, there we have a list of to-dos right there. Okay, so it has fetched that data, and for each of those to-do instances, it's displaying the to-do. Okay, so now this is not how we're going to be displaying it, because Laravel provides a very easy syntax for us to use. Okay, so right here I will just say at for each to-dos as to-do, and right here I'll just say and for each. Okay, and this is Laravel's blade templating engine. Okay, so for each loop we have at for each, and we end it right here. And how do we echo? Okay, so right here we'll just open the mustache syntax, so opening braces twice, closing braces twice, and we'll just input the data that we want to echo. So we want to echo the to do right there. Okay, and after that we might probably want a break tag. So this looks cleaner, and if we go back to our browser and refresh, right there we have exactly the same thing. Okay, but there with some break tags. So for readability purposes, I'm going to reduce the size of the title. So the title, I will reduce the size to 44 pixels, and if I refresh, okay, so that looks better. So we see we're receiving the to-dos from the database, and for each of those we are displaying the to-do, and we are putting a break tag. Okay, we can go ahead and insert a horizontal line so that we see better, and still reduce the font because it still looks bigger, and I'll just say 24. Okay, so there we have it. Okay, that's our data from the database, and there are 7 of them. So now we are able to communicate with our database using Eloquent. And Eloquent is simply the modeling system for Laravel. So it's our ORM that is interacting with our database. So now we've seen our view, we've seen our model, and we've seen our controller. So our model has methods that are defined on them that interact with our database. For example, the first method we saw is the all method, and this all method gets all the database records for this table. Now we learned about the with method, which actually passes data to our view. So we collected some data from our table and we saved it in a variable, and we passed in that data to our view using the with method. Okay, so our user visits the /todos route, our router picks up that request, and he connects it to our todos controller and the index method. And in our todos controller, we fetch all the database records and we pass in that data to our view. And in our view, we use blade templating engine syntax to display all the to-dos. So for each of those to-dos, just echo out the to do and draw a horizontal line.